Hello and welcome to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the EdJR mining guy over on X. And together with our good friend Brien Lundin, I'm the host of the Gold Newsletter channel. I'm looking forward to a company introduction today. Honey Badger Silver, and we're being joined by Executive Chairman Chad Williams. Really looking forward to the conversation. They have an interesting project up in the Yukon, Plata, which I'm curious to learn more about today. And of course, some other activities going on as well. Really looking forward to catching up here with Chad in a few short seconds. Before I switch over to my guest, hit that like and subscribe button. It's a free way to support our channel, and we tremendously appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, Chad, it is great to welcome you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Gold Newsletter.
No, thank you, Kai. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really looking forward to learning more about Honey Badger Silver. Before we dive into some of the nitty gritty, Chad, let's start with a bit of an overview. 60 seconds. Who and what is Honey Badger Silver?
So it's a very simple story. The board, the management of Honey Badger, and the shareholders all share a fundamental belief that the price of silver will rise substantially. To pick a number out of the air, let's say $100 an ounce from about a third of that right now. And so the thesis is that we will do whatever it takes to benefit, to profit, to make money on a rising silver market. And with that in mind, we've got 7 silver deposits. 4 of them have a resource. 3 of them are, well, all of them are historic. 3 of them are quantified. The fourth is, I would say we're working on it, but it has a resource. And all of our assets are located in Canada. If you total our ounces, they're about 150 million silver equivalent ounces. There's zinc in there, but a lot of silver, of course. Our market cap today is about 8 million, trading at about 10 cents, so about 80 million shares. And I own about 30% of the company. I'm as you mentioned, the chairman, and I recently became the interim CEO. We have been outrageously active in the last 4 years since I took over to add assets and really, with one goal in mind. When silver hits 100, we want to be a billion market cap company. And so for that to happen, we need to bulk up our asset base and demonstrate to investors that we offer a very unique proposition for them.
No, absolutely. No, interesting. Like 150 million ounces silver equivalent is nothing to laugh at, of course. Before we talk capital structure, maybe how do you describe the business plan? Like, how would you describe yourself? Are you a prospect generator? Are you a land bank? Like, how would you sort of describe it?
We are unique. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know I look a lot younger than that. I'm kidding, of course.
Well, mining does age you.
Yes, it does. Every day is a grind in our business. Long story short is that I have liked silver ever since I was very, very young. I used to have a newspaper route, and I made a little bit of money. And when silver was rising, when the Hunt brothers were trying to corner the silver market, I bought 10 ounces of silver at something like $30. In fact, I'm probably break even. It only took 50 years or something like that. Maybe not 50 years, but 35 years. I just realized that I'm break even on my silver purchase. But the point is silver, I bought it high. It crashed when the Hunt brothers went away. And of course, there's a saying that people that become professionals in the investment business usually make a lot of money on their first trade or lose a lot of money on their first trade. And so I lost, which was a lot of money then for me as a young man. But it led me to figure out or try to figure out what drove the silver price and other commodities, things like that. So I'm a lifelong believer, supporter in silver. And I am in the process, or we are, as I said, management and the board are in the process of creating a very unique product. So we have a 3-pronged approach. Okay, I'm doing a triangle for visualization. On the one hand, we have, and we started with earlier stage, high grade exploration, silver exploration assets. That was phase 1 done. Phase 2 is higher grade quality silver deposits that are known, but for a variety of reasons haven't been mined, or in some instances were mined, but the mining stopped, usually because the commodity price went down, many, many decades ago. And so we have these projects. So part 2 done. Part 3 is we're looking for cash flow exposure to silver metal, and the easiest way to do that is through a royalty or a stream. We would also consider a production scenario, but as you know, Kai, you've been doing this a while too. Mines tend to be very difficult, so we'd be leaning towards royalties and streams. As a small footnote, I'm the person that invented the streaming concept 20 years ago. I was an analyst slash investment banker, and I used to follow a company called Silver Standard, a guy called Bob Quartermain, who I admire immensely. Bob was running Silver Standard, and I had a really hard time finding money for Bob because even though he had 1 billion ounces of silver in reserves, many institutional investors in particular wanted him or would not invest because he didn't have cash flow. He didn't have silver revenue. And so I went to see Ian Telfer, who was at Wheaton River at the time. I said, Ian, sell your silver to Bob. That became streaming. And we're going to try to do something very, stay tuned, I guess. Your listeners and investors will see shortly on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like before we get into the nitty gritty and some of the details on how you plan to execute here, Chad, let's talk cap structure real quick. You said 8 million market cap. Of course, doesn't leave a lot of room for bigger deals, but run us a bit through the capital structure. 80 million shares outstanding. You're the biggest investor. Any warrants, options outstanding? How much cash do you have?
Yeah, so the warrants are the usual for a company of our size and stage. I don't know what if you add the options and warrants, it's probably another 10%, maybe 15%, 1.5 to the 80 million roughly that are out. As mentioned, I own 30% of it, so I've put my money. I haven't drawn any money out of this company. I invest everything back and then some. In fact, every dollar after tax that comes to me, I invest $2 back in the company. So in other words, I invest the money on a pre-tax basis. Eric Sprott's a shareholder as well. And Eric is, as you know, and your listeners and anybody who's in the mining business understands, Eric's a big silver bug, and he's very supportive of us, and he likes what we're doing. We're thrilled to have him on our share register as well. In terms of cash, we've got about $500,000, which means, and by the way, yeah, 500,000, which isn't a lot, and we're going to need to continue raising capital until we get this cash flow stream, which I keep hinting about. But we have a very, very low burn rate because all of our projects have exceedingly low holding costs. In fact, our total commitment this year, our obligation is $65,000 Canadian. And the reason is because these projects have been around for a while. Many other companies have spent money on them. And so the holding costs are very low. The book value is high, probably somewhere like $50 or $60 million. It's hard to, because some of these projects are 50, 60 years old. The point being is our burn rate is low. We don't have an office, and we try to keep our costs as low as possible, of course, which is important in this market. We have to do that.
Oh, absolutely. It hasn't really reached the juniors yet. I just had a conversation on our other channel with Jordan Roy Byrne. It hasn't really trickled all the way down, despite Barrick and others producing cash flow margins of over 100%, right? Which is ridiculous. So it hasn't really trickled all the way down. So let's talk about how you're planning to get to cash flow here, Chad. Like, what's the strategy? How are you planning to achieve that? How much wiggle room do you have?
So we have, as the cliche goes, we have champagne taste, but a beer budget. So we have to be very, very innovative, delicate, if I could use that word. Very surgically, very focused, and demonstrate to the market that we can do a deal that is good for our investors. That is, albeit it'll be relatively small at the beginning, but our hope and expectation is that investors, once they look into the details of this transaction, or a transaction, because we're working on many of them, that they will see that this is an innovative, a smart way of doing business, not just for us as Honey Badger, but also for the producer on the other side. And we hope that it will lead to greater attention. And speaking of attention, I really, my priority, or one of my priorities, is to get more eyeballs on our story. I think we're, to your point, many juniors are undervalued. There are hundreds of juniors that are about that would say what I'm about to say, that they think they're undervalued. But I mean, if you look at our asset base, if you actually spend the time, I mean, it's ridiculous to me why we're not trading at multiples of where we're trading. You know, just do your homework and ask the questions. It's just shocking to me. We should be trading much higher to that. As an example, we've got a project. It's called Plata, and you mentioned it at the beginning. It's located adjacent to Snowline's Rogue discovery, the best gold discovery in a long, long time in Canada, if not anywhere in the world, right? And we're next door. We have the only road access to the region. We have the only airstrip. Uh, I was, before I bought Plata about 3 or 4 years ago, even before Snowline was what it is today, I walked the Plata ground, and there are 32 drill-ready targets on our property. I've been doing this for a long time. I have never seen a property that is so prospective as Plata. Now, the market hasn't been conducive for us to raise money to drill it. Drilling, that part of the world isn't cheap. But, at the end of the day, we control it. We own 100% of it. And, to me, it's just a matter of time before the market recognizes it.
Yeah, absolutely. A big fan of the Yukon and what's going on there in the Tombstone Gold Belt. I know you don't have to spend a lot of money, $65,000 this year on exploration. But are you going to do some actual work this year then?
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of work. We're going to be very selective. We've got a team working. I like to use sort of crowdsourcing, if you will, for geologic targets, because we've got 7 properties. It's easy to for geologists. I'm sure you've seen this in your career, for geologists to fall in love with a particular asset for whatever reason. Maybe it reminds him or her of something that they were successful on. So we've it's the analogy I'm going to use. It's a little bit like professional sports, whereby an athlete is very expensive. Okay, tens or many tens of millions of dollars a year for an elite athlete. But the coaches, the trainers behind the scenes, they're relatively cheap. So we can hire, lots of good geologists behind the scenes to pour through the data on all of our projects using traditional exploration or target definition techniques, or using AI, or let's call it background work that's like desktop study work. That's really, really cheap, rather than having to drill, because the moment you say drilling, it's $1 million, right? And so we would rather spend a lot of money defining targets, knowing exactly. And I know the market may not like that too much. It's not terribly sexy, if I could use that word. It's not terribly exciting. But for us as a company, like for me as a shareholder, I'd much rather do that, especially in this market context, because I know even if we released spectacular results, I don't even know if the market would recognize us for that. So let's do all the background work, so that when the market is right and ready for it, then we're ready to go into action. And so right now what we're doing is prioritizing exactly where we are going to drill, whether it's Plata. We have certain board members, for example, that love Plata. Nana Civic, which was a very successful mine. There are reserves, or rather, let's call them resources, left there. They never tested for metals that are very important to us today, like germanium and so forth. They never tested for those metals when that mine was in production, because people didn't have cell phones 20, 30 years ago. And I would add, for example, at Nana Civic, there's a 100 million ton resource. It's a pyrite deposit that is rumored to have 1 or 2 ounces per ton. So, that's of silver. And so if you do the math, that is probably a very strategic silver deposit for us if we're able to prove that. So how does that rank for a company of our size? How does that rank relative to Plata or Sunrise or Java? I can go on and on talking about. So one message I'd like to, and I'll stop talking in a second here. I'd like to leave with your listeners is that, I was a top ranked analyst. I was known for being innovative and finding deposits. And I can give you dozens and dozens of ideas. Eleanor, Arequipa, of where I was the first, El Peñon, where I was the first analyst to discover, in essence, for the market that these were going to be big deposits. And so while everybody else in the silver market has been dormant essentially for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been highly, highly active aggregating a portfolio of silver assets. And it doesn't cost us much. It's almost like a free option on these assets, right? It's not like we don't have to earn in. We already own them. We don't have to spend money on these assets, really. They're ours. And at some point, it's just like money in the bank. The other example I use is like, for example, when Van Gogh died, if you went over to his house and bought a lot of his paintings for $1, put them in your garage and you just kept them, they're very valuable, right? All of our assets are valuable. It's just not being recognized right now. And again, I could be accused of saying something that many other executives are saying right now in this market.
Yeah, let's just hope the silver market doesn't die like Van Gogh. So, or you don't have to cut off your ear to generate any value here, Chad. But you might have to leave an arm and a leg to get things done here these days, right?
Or no, my hair. Yeah, it's cost me my hair. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, Chad, one last question for you, perhaps. Would it make sense to rename the company into Silver Bank Resources or something like that? Because you do have a nice silver bank here, or silver equivalent bank, and there's nothing wrong with that to wait this out, right?
It's interesting because one of our big shareholders, when I took over the company, he said, if you your name is very controversial. Some people love it, and some people absolutely can't stand it. I think we should have I like a lot of the characteristics of the honey badger. And they're tenacious, they're fearless, and that kind of thing. And quite frankly, I kind of look like one. And just let me reach over. Like I even have a statue of a honey badger right here. The point I'm trying to make is, it's a name that's near and dear to my heart. But if the shareholders want us to change it, we could definitely change it to something else.
Yeah. No, I was just half kidding, of course, but the honey badger don't care. We all know that video of Aussie Man reviews. Honey badger don't care. So
that's right.
Absolutely. No, chat. Like very last question at the end of these interviews, I always have to ask for upcoming catalysts. Anything we can expect from the company in the next or near distant future here?
So we do understand that the market feeds on news, and our goal is to issue at least one press release per month. Our goal, at the very least, this year, since the beginning of the year, has been to have an update on each of our projects to remind investors what we have. My saying is, the most popular rock band of all time, the Rolling Stones, most people can only remember the name of Mick Jagger, right? Some people, Keith Richards. The point I'm trying to make is it's easy for folks to forget that we have 7 deposits, 7 assets, 7 projects. I get that. So we are going to remind people, we're going to bring those projects to the surface. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, as I mentioned, we're working on some innovative innovative royalty structure that I think will be very, very beneficial to our shareholders. It's a bit of a work in process. It's a bit of an experiment, so stay tuned, but we're very excited. I'm very excited about it. And then ultimately, once our geologic team, as I said, the crowdsourcing kind of philosophy, once we bring the number one project in terms of getting the most value for dollar spent to the surface, whether it's Plata, or Nana Civic or one of the other projects, we will then start doing work on that particular project. We don't have the money, the bandwidth, quite frankly, the intent to work on 7 projects. We don't even need to do that, but we do need to focus on one and generate some news to add value to that project.
Makes
so there'll be a lot of news for the rest of the year. Okay.
No, fantastic. Awesome. Chad, really, really good overview here of Honey Badger Silver. Appreciate you joining us, of course, here on the Gold Newsletter. We'll be tracking your progress throughout the year, of course. So, Chad, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in here to Gold Newsletter. If you enjoyed this conversation with Chad Williams, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us reach a wider investor audience. And just leave a comment down below. What do you think of the strategy? Really curious to hear from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with lots more here on the Gold Newsletter.